Hello, I'm Dr. David Rosensweet, and you've tuned in to the second segment of our Thursday afternoon, usually at 2 o'clock, but because of technical issues, we're running a half hour behind time. This is I Wonder Doctor Live, and this is the segment we love to review any tools that we have to help you respond more elegantly and efficiently and more healthily to the stresses in our lives. And today I'd like to talk about the topic of forgiveness. Many of you have heard this term, and there's big-time forgivenesses that we can, subject of big-time indiscretions, and then I'm going to focus more in on the day-to-day forgiveness. Well, what is forgiveness about? It's a natural, human, programmed, genetically sound and secure mechanism we have that derives from being conscious and being sensitive. And if we do an action or a communication or a choice that is not beneficial to ourselves or to another being, that includes peoples and trees and rocks, we feel it on some level. We may not be conscious of it, but we definitely experience it. And it's a wonderful tune-up mechanism, because the more conscious we get about things that don't feel right, the more we can tune up how we are alive and living and the choices we're making. And we can get happier and healthier by recognizing when we don't feel right and making the adjustment and learning from it. And part of that can be when we do something that's out of integrity or out of discretion or an indiscretion, or it violates something or irritates somebody or hurts somebody, they wind up feeling it, and we're not going to feel good about that. And one thing that can happen is we can get stuck in that diffuse, unconscious, or even conscious experience of doing something that's not quite right. And that's when people feel guilty. That's when you meet a human being that they sort of feel guilty about everything all the time. They sort of have this built-in, there's something wrong with me, what I do is wrong approach to life. And it's not helpful. And I'm not here to fault anybody. I'm only here to help us all, including myself, become more aware of these silent but difficult things that can go on inside of ourselves, these thoughts and feelings that don't go recognized and they don't get adjusted. So as far as a practice goes, the more attention you pay to your moment to moment, the more you're going to recognize when you wind up doing something that is uncomfortable to you. And I have a sense that we have a treasured guest, and here he comes. And I seem to know you. You wouldn't happen to be my son Joshua, would you? Yes,
and I
you
seem
would.
to know you.
So you obviously scooted on here because you probably have some questions or places you want to help me go with this whole subject of forgiveness.
Yes, but because of technical difficulties, my brain is catching up to where we were.
Yeah.
What would I say about forgiveness?
Well, where I was taking us was the more awake and conscious and sensing we are of being in the moment. That means I'm looking at you, I'm seeing you, I'm listening to you, rather than looking at you and thinking, gee, did we turn off the stove when I left the house this morning? Is my car going to function perfectly when I drive home? Where should we go on vacation?
Now, I love that concept. And I know this one, that sometimes when I'm really in the moment, I'm really seeing the people around me. And sometimes when I'm not in the moment, it looks like I am. I'm
right.
Smiling and nodding at the right moment. Like when I rolled onto the set, I didn't know what was going on. But help me to connect that concept, which I love, with forgiveness. How is that connected to forgiveness?
Thank you. Because if you're paying attention in the moment, you're going to have a sensing of what you feel. And you're going to have a sensing when you feel not quite right about something. and you're going to be paying attention, so you might be saying, I'm not feeling quite right, what's going on? Look at that. I was just rude to my granddaughter.
Yeah.
And, you know, paying attention to her, I saw her face. It could be my granddaughter, it could be Kim, it could be you, it could be anybody. It could be a checkout counter person. Look at that. I was a little grumpy at the checkout counter in the supermarket, and I watched that cashier, who was friendly when I rolled up, even though she's been working all day long.
Yeah.
She was very friendly in greeting me,
Yeah.
honestly, and then her face sort of sunk. Well, I noticed my effect, and I could say, I'm sorry. Really, what that is about is I'm asking your forgiveness. I'm acknowledging that I did something that was a little harsh, and it has to be a genuine statement. It can't be, oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. No, what's going on here?
Here's where I thought you were going to go with this. If I'm not actually showing up for the moment with you, and I've walked in and I'm grumpy at you, and I'm not willing to forgive you, and I'm not paying attention to you, what I'll do is run through my preconceived notions of what I think you're thinking, or what script I think you're running. Rather than if I'm actually in the moment and I'm actually listening for the first time, even though you may be saying something to me you've said 100 times before, in that moment, you are in that moment. And if I show up for that moment and really listen to what you've said, not assume I know what motivations you've got going on, then I hear you rather than some other
How
idea
great
of
is
you.
that? And of course, just to follow that thought, that's where life gets interesting. Because the more I hear you, the more I'm paying attention to you, oh my God, the subtleties. I saw something in Kim, we've been together for a long time, that I had never seen before because I was paying a lot of attention when we were out to dinner. And it was such a thrill because we're always changing and growing. And when we are paying attention like that, we get exposed to the beauty and a lot of it. Now that may not be related to forgiveness, but it is related to paying a lot of attention to what's going on in the moment.
As we put together our headline for today, we talked about forgiveness for others.
Yeah.
What about the concept of forgiveness of self?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Extremely relevant. And this is where we get to practice it the most, is with ourselves, because we don't need others to figure this out. And it's a matter of coming to recognize when we are thinking things that are uncomfortable or unbeneficial, or making negative statements to our own mind or having uncomfortable feeling. The first part of the forgiveness is recognizing what we're doing. And then there has to be this global forgiveness where we admit that we are human beings. We are a work in progress. We have to have space to not be perfect. We want to be perfect because that seems like some strategy we're taught, or this is going to make the world safe for us. But we're human beings. We're on our way home. We're not all the way home. So part of forgiveness is getting that core tool called acceptance. So number one, we become conscious. I just had a stream of negative thinking. How's this helping what I'm trying to work out here? And then with that stream of negative thinking, I'm going to have some uncomfortable feelings. They are going to be associated with fear or hopelessness or powerlessness. And being present means I become conscious and aware and sensing of those uncomfortable feelings, and I accept them. That means I let that imperfect human energy be exactly what it is. Because if I judge it, if I try and get rid of it, if I try and go to disappear in my mind and pretend it's not there, if I have power of positive thinking over it, which is really a strategy to get rid of it, I mean, there's a place for power of positive thinking, but that's not one of them, and from my way of addressing these things. I can blur what's going on, but simple acceptance, where I have a core recognition that I'm a human being. It's okay to not be perfect and to make mistakes and to have thoughts and communications that aren't perfect. That acceptance is the beginning of forgiveness. I'm allowing myself to be who I am. And if my effect has been harsh on someone else, I want to include in that acceptance, and I'm sorry that I was a grump. I didn't need to be that harsh and judgmental. Communications like that go a million miles when they're authentic. We all know when they're not authentic. Everyone is smart.
Right. Or there's an expectation of mutual forgiveness, right? I'm sorry, aren't you? Rather than just, I'm sorry.
Isn't that a practice that I just don't ever like to encounter, where I've got a caveat with my apology, just like you said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, now come forward with your apology because your apology is just as important as me admitting. No, in my world, I lose all right to receive anything from anybody if I'm part of that indiscretion, which I usually am, or that harsh talk or something. I just want to focus on my recognition of my going over the top or hurting somebody, and I want to let go of any criteria I have, and they're going to speak back. And if I have an expectation that you're going to apologize too, because after all, you flared up too, it's just destructive. It just doesn't go anywhere. It just ruins my own peace of mind. And there we go. We have an agenda. I'll do this if you'll do that. You know, it doesn't work in this world at all.
There's one other element of personal forgiveness that matters a lot to me. The first one is, like you said, that if I've done something, then I admit it to myself.
Yeah.
Admit I've done it. And then what I'm going to do in my future about the thing I've done. Am I going to continue to repeat the thing that I did that I was not proud of? There's a twofold thing for me. One is to admit I might. That I am an imperfect being, and if I did this thing yesterday, there's a good chance I'll do it tomorrow. And so I've got to forgive my future actions. And simultaneously hold to myself the desire to keep learning and growing. So if I start by admitting I did this thing, and then I admit to myself, and I may do it again in the future, and I say to myself, and I care about this, I care about learning, and I care about growth, and I'm going to be as aware and present and conscious and honorable as I can be. Those are sort of the two key pieces for me to forgive myself for something I've done.
Yeah, you're bringing it into your project list. I mean, I understand this one in my own way. It's not that I'm just going to end it with, and please forgive me.
Yeah.
That one is going to enter my day-to-day project list, and I have one.
Yeah.
And I know what those projects are, and I know what my project list was for today. I caught myself getting a little worried this morning, and I watched myself communicating to you and to Maya in a little bit of marginal ways. You know, that could be harder to deal with than easy for you guys.
Boy, did I watch you turn that ship.
And I saw
I
it.
saw it happen.
And it's work. I mean, I work a lot every single day. Well, because it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
That once you're going off the rails a little bit, I know I've come a million miles. In my past, I could really go off the rails. If I went off the rails a little bit, I could pretty much count on in an hour being much further off the rails and in a lot more pain and suffering, leaving a trail of tears. Not anymore.
I want to stop and repeat this story.
Yeah.
Because this is such a perfect, poignant example of this to me. We're having our day here. We've got technical glitches going on. We've got all the business stuff that life has. And I watched you tense up. And what happened? We're trying to be comfortable so that we can be good on camera and all the things we're trying to do. And I feel myself tense up. And I'm not telling the story because of that, because that is a path we all know well. I could have tensed up and started affecting your day. You could have tensed up more and affected my day. And by the time we got here, we could have been yelling at each other or pretending.
That's right.
And the remarkable thing that you did differently was that moment happened. this is my take on it, because this is what it felt like from my side. You saw it impact me.
Mm-hmm.
You saw my mood downshift a little bit as I
Right.
felt your stress rise.
Right.
And then we ran off and we did our own things. And 3 minutes later, we're back in the same room together.
Mm-hmm.
And you have risen to the occasion. You're kind. You're re-interjecting humor into the day. You're reminding us through your body language and who you are that it's even when things don't work out okay, that they are okay. And
Yeah.
remarkable, because it
Thank you.
worked. You turned this day by showing up for that moment.
And of course, it became more fun for me. And one thing I'd like to point out is I admit to working to do that.
Yeah.
It's taken a lot of practice. And for me, I'm a slow learner. I admit it. It's taken years. It's effort. Anyone out there, you know that if you're slipping off and getting a little uncomfortable, you may or may not be able to rein it in. Well, if you take on the practice and the project of reining it in, when you take a little bit of a quirky turn, you'll get better and better and better at it. And that's how I was able to pull it off. It wasn't like this was a brand new discovery for me. I work hard at this every day. And it's very rewarding because I started having fun, you started having fun.
There's many, forgiveness we could go on for a long time, and we don't have many minutes left, but my finish line was, I was remembering, I believe it was the 7 Habits of Effective People, whatever that post's called, where he talked about the concept of a bank account.
Yes, right.
And every time you rise to the occasion, do something honorable, do something kind, apologize first, all those things, you fill a bank account with somebody else. And every time
you're building trust.
You're
That's
building
the bank
trust.
account of
Yeah.
trust that you're building.
And of course, the opposite is true. When you don't do those things, when you suck from the room,
Right.
you drain that bank account. And really, this today is about forgiveness of self and forgiveness of others. But there's another forgiveness, and that's called, how can I forgive you so easily for your thing today?
Mm-hmm.
It's because you fill your bank account with me so frequently.
Mm.
And so you want
Thank
to
you,
be
and
eagerly forgiven.
I think there's another element to that.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that you let go, and it looked to me like you had forgiven me without talking about it. We didn't talk about this so quickly.
Yeah.
And Kim has this skill. Oh my God, I've never seen anyone let go so quickly. We can go into something, but let go. So forgiveness is a day-to-day thing that has many different elements to it, many different facets.
Well, here's my side.
Yeah.
You got a little tense, and I got a little tense.
Right.
But I knew that my tension was really my own. Right?
Exactly.
I was in my day, and I'm flipped out about the
Exactly.
cameras.
Right.
And part of why I could forgive you easily is that I honestly knew that most of my buildup, and by the way, what we're talking about on the surface, if there'd been a camera mounted, would have looked like close to nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Right.
No one yelled at each other.
Right.
But we know each other well enough
And
to
everybody
know.
has this experience. It doesn't have to have visible external manifestations for people to have strong feelings if things aren't going well.
Yeah.
Hey.
Today is a short day. I think
Yeah.
I'll roll off and
Okay.
let you finish it with the cameras.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Always a pleasure,
Well, I
Dan.
hardly never have a time where I'm not seeing you today, which is my great good fortune. So, forgiveness is also a choice. All you have to do is recognize that you're in something that's uncomfortable. You can admit it to yourself, you can accept yourself, and if you can do that, the next thing is, I forgive you. It can be an intention. It doesn't have to be perfect. And a subject that can have so many different layers and meanings. And here I am, Dr. David Rosensweet, and I Wonder Doctor Live, our second segment today. And it's always an honor and a pleasure to be with you.